Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Christelle, and got a book chat today. We're gonna do just a weekly wrap up. Back to a weekly wrap up here. I'm still trying to settle into how I want to do a weekly. I like weekly videos. I think I'm just gonna switch to doing them on Saturdays. I think for me that will work best for my schedule. So. So it's been a little over a week since my last weekly wrap up. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. This is a weekly wrap up, so this will kind of go over what I've been reading here in this first part of September so far. So let's get into it. The first thing I've completed was The House of 100 Whispers by Graham Masterson. This was for Rachel of Shades of Orange, her Patreon book club. I listened to the audiobook. I did not write the narrator down. I keep forgetting to do that. But anyway, and this one was okay. It was, I was going and thinking sort of standard kind of haunted house, possibly ghost story kind of thing. And it was that, but it was also a little something else going on. So the gist of the story is we've got these three siblings who are, the father has just passed away, so they're coming back to the old house, to kind of clear up the estate and see what's in the will, all that sort of thing. So there's, one of the brothers and his wife, and then another brother, his wife, and their little 5-year-old, and then a sister. I'm not remembering anybody's names right now, of course, a sister and her wife. And so, again, they've come to this, and the house is really old, and again, the father has passed away. And something happens once they all get there, and the little boy, Timmy, I remember his name, that's my stepdad's name, but he goes missing. Yeah, just disappears. We can't find him anywhere. So that kind of starts the journey of this story. Trying to figure out what happened to Timmy. And yeah, it definitely goes to some places that I was not expecting, as far as some themes that they were explored and some possible supernatural elements. Overall, it was written pretty well, and it kept my interest. I mean, anything that kind of keeps you wanting to read, is pretty good. The characters, I didn't love. They weren't super. I don't know. They weren't like super likable, which I don't have to like characters, but I don't know. There was something. They would act really weird sometimes, and there was some tension too. I do like when there's like tension within a family. Like you could tell a couple of the particularly the brothers, it seems, were kind of at odds, at times. That brought in some kind of good juicy like family drama tension, feeling. But the characters were okay. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And there is a rape scene in this book, which was absolutely unnecessary. And I just wanted to put that out there because it's not something I expected from this story going into it. Sometimes you think it doesn't really catch you off guard or something, or it fits the storyline, or not ever the rape scene is ever like necessary, but you know what I'm saying. This one, it really just came out of nowhere, and it went too far. Like, you could have just maybe even implied, or you didn't have to go through with it, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but I hope that it's, I hope I'm making that clear, but that just was unnecessary and brought me out of the story some, and I just was like, what was the point of that? Like, why even do that, So it wasn't a perfect book. It was interesting as far as the topics, I love this, people having to come back home when they don't really want to. Like, I love, that's one of my favorite tropes in a story. And then this mystery of like what has happened to this little boy. There's other stuff that's going on that I don't want to spoil too much, but that definitely was interesting to me. And, so I kept reading, but I'm not going to say it's like a favorite. I think I'd settle on a 3.5-ish stars. It was fine, It was interesting enough, and yeah, it was fine, right? I would possibly, this is the first time reading this author, and I would probably check something else out by him just to give it another go, see how the next story goes, and see if there's some of these things that I noticed in this story that weren't my favorite. If it shows up in like another story, I maybe would not read from him anymore, that kind of thing. But overall, I kind of enjoyed the ride of the story, just went along with it. I find if I just kind of go along with something, it'll be a fun ride. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was fine. But then I hopped on to a buddy read with a small group of folks that Nikki over at Dark Between Pages was hosting. This book was not on my TBR, so that's fun. But it's Ungodly by Braden Riddick. And the authors had sent me a copy of this, just an ebook copy of it. Thank you, Braden, if you happen to watch this. I'm not sure, but this one I liked. This one I really liked. And how to describe this one? It's kind of it's a strange one too, but it's set in like a really small town. I love a good small town horror story. And this is a horror story, again with some kind of supernatural-ish elements to it. And we follow several characters, but the main character that we follow is this girl named Amanda, and she is a college student. This is sort of a small college town in the mountains of some state, I don't remember. But and she is just up in her dorm room, and then there is of course this like abandoned dorm room on campus that no one goes into and is locked up and all that. But she kind of glances out the window, and there's this red light coming from like one of the floors of this dorm room, and she's like, oh, that's strange, but she keeps watching, and then this person shows up like in silhouette against the red, and she's like, oh my god, what's going on there? Someone's supposed to be inside that because it's an abandoned dorm, right? And then he plummets, he falls off. Several, bunch of stories, and she's like, oh gosh, someone's killed themselves, right? And she's called the police and all that, and they can't find a body. So this starts the sort of, this story here. And like I said, we do pick up the storyline of a couple other folks, like a local law enforcement officer, another college student, who kind of gets connected up with Amanda as they're figuring out what's going on. His name is Brian, I'm pretty sure. We pick one of his buddies is kind of intermixed, things like that. We even go back in time a little bit to where some of these events have happened before, throughout history. And like I said, there are definitely some elements of, I hesitate to say supernatural type stuff. I'll say that without saying too much more. But this was really good, and Braden has really written a good story here. It definitely kept me intrigued through the whole time. I had to know what in the world was going on. There were some definite scenes of good horror scenes, and some good old violence. Good old violence, and the characters were written very well. I thought, especially like the main girl and another guy, that Brian guy. You really felt for them. They had a lot of heart. We learned a lot about their backstories and all that kind of stuff. So you were really rooting for them through the story. So that was always nice. It's always nice to have characters that you're in their corner pulling for them. And it had some darkness to it. It was really good. So if you like, again, if you like small town horror, definitely I'll recommend this one. If you like your horror with a twist of, like I said, supernatural god-like things occurring. You might like this one. And overall, yeah, I'd recommend it. It was really good. Definitely kept me flipping those pages. So thanks again to Brayden for sending me the copy. And I think I ended up on 4 stars for this one. Very enjoyable. Very much liked it. So let's see what's next. Oh yes, for my book club that I run with a little group of friends, our choice for this month was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. We had to choose a fantasy book for this month. I got stuff falling everywhere here. Gosh. And this is a YA fantasy. I don't read a ton of YA fantasy, but I mean, I've read some, and I heard a lot of good stuff about this book when it came out. Was that last year or year before, maybe? A couple years ago now. And yeah, I liked this one a lot too. I really enjoyed this one. We're set in sort of African inspired setting, which I thought was which is always really good, I think. And we are following our main character, who is 16, 17ish or so, we'll say. And she is part of a sort of people that are referred to as magi, even though magic has basically been, let's say, outlawed and destroyed. Essentially, people don't have magic powers anymore because the ruler of this land is very fearful of magic and doesn't want the people that have magic and power. Makes sense. And but some things occur, some items are found where perhaps magic can be brought back to these people, and so we basically are following this. And like I said, this young character, Zele, I was like terrible at names. I'm gonna start writing names down in my book so I can remember them. And her brother, and they are kind of going off on this journey. And then we've got some people that are from the other folks, these sort of ruling folks. They get wrapped up in sort of the chase. They're chasing each other down, that kind of thing. And I don't know. I really liked this story. There was a lot of tension here, because we're just following this journey. The stakes are high. The stakes are very high. So a lot of things happen. It's just quite violent, which definitely fits the story. And excuse me. And I really loved the world that Tomi Adeyemi created here. It was very, very vibrant. The characters were, again, very well done, and really came to life on the page. I thought they were all super interesting, and again, I was very invested in their stories and rooting for them and hoping they would make the right decisions, that kind of thing. There were, some of your typical YA tropes, but it wasn't too over the top. There was a little bit of romance in it, but it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like too crazy over the top. It was maybe a skosh too long for me. But again, overall, I enjoyed it. Appreciated the commentary on race, because the ruling, sort of the ruling folks are a lighter skinned, and those magi people that have magic are darker, have darker skin, and there are definitely some commentary about race in there, and power, and being fearful of something, of someone, and wanting to suppress. So I thought that was done very well. Again, overall, I really enjoyed it, and I listened to the audiobook, and Bonnie Turpin, she always knocks it out of the park. She did this one fantastic, and I have loved everything that I have ever listened to from Bonnie. She always does a great job. And she did a great job here. I gave this one 4 stars, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'll definitely be interested in checking out the second one at some point. I'm not in a super hurry. I've heard not so good things about the second book, so I'm not in a super hurry, but I would check it out just to kind of see what's happened, because this definitely ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, which isn't always my favorite thing, but enjoyable. And most of the folks in our group so far that I've read it have, enjoyed it pretty good. So it was a good pick for us this month. So yeah, Children of Blood and Bone. Enjoyed it. It was very good, and this cover is stunning. Okay, so the next thing that I finished up was, I've got this one here, The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I loved this one. This one was amazing. So I had this one on my TBR, of course, for the that 70s horror challenge that's hosted by John over at Books of Blood, and I used this for 3 of the prompts. Actually, let me get to that page. But yeah, book about a demonic possession. Obviously, a check there. A book with a creepy kid, creepy or evil child. Yeah, check mark. And a book that's set in the 70s. I'm assuming this is set in the 70s since it was published in the 70s. I'm going with that. So yeah. Exorcist is one of those stories, for me, it's like I've seen the movie a bunch of times. Like, I know what The Exorcist is about, and yeah, this is the story, right? But whoa, this book is so good. It's so good. I think William Peter Blatty has just almost written the perfect book here, honestly. Of course, if you're not at all familiar, we've got a woman she's divorced, and she and her young child Reagan, I think she's like 12-ish, they are living in, looks kind of like the DC neighborhood and area, and she also lives with like a couple of housekeepers and like a woman that kind of like a secretary almost, kind of keeps her organized, because the woman, Chris is her name, I forget her name, of course, is an actor. She's pretty famous, but again, she's divorced. But anyway, we have this slow build up, and that's what's so wonderful about it. It is the slowness of it. I think that's part that just really was perfect for me. In the beginning, it's just normal stuff. She's like finishing up a job, she takes her daughter out to eat. Just some, simple little things, and then Reagan starts acting a little funny and doesn't seem well, and then shit hits the fan, and it's the heartbreak really of Chris trying to like figure out what in the world's going on with my daughter. She's taken her all sorts of doctors and all sorts of medicine. They've tried everything until maybe she's possessed by a demon, Let's bring in The Exorcist, right? And I just love this. I just, I'm kind of speechless. I'm like, what do I even say about it? Because it was so amazing. And I kind of kick myself for not having read it before, but that's fine. We can experience our books whenever we get to them. And I'm so glad, of course, I read it now, because it's amazing. So yeah, if you think, I've watched The Exorcist a bunch of times, I don't need to read it, do yourself a favor and read this book. And if you can, listen to the audiobook that is narrated by William Peter Blatty, because he does an amazing job telling the story. He knocks it out of the park. Oh, so good. It's so creepy. If there's some, of course, it goes to some places where you're just kind of, I think, several times I was like, gosh, clutching my pearls a bit on that, like, he went there, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's so good. So good. 5 stars. I loved it. So those are things I've completed so far here in September. And I do have a couple things in progress. I've got I'm working my way through Dust by Hugh Howard. This is book 3, so I'm half-ish way through. This is the finale, of the Silo trilogy, and wrapping up this read-along from that Scott over at Book Invasion was hosting. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm very curious to see how this one's gonna end. I'm very curious. And I'm doing my buddy read of Night Film with Kelly from Kelly Hooked on Books. And I'm third-ish of the way through of this one. Really liking this one also. It's taking a turn and I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna go in this direction. Okay, I'm along for the ride. I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna see how it is. Let's give it a go. So, making my way through that. I've got a couple things of book mail. I did pick up this. What's it? The Strange Thing We Become Another Dark Tales by Eric LaRocca. Because obviously, and y'all know I had to get my copy of the new and improved Remy Fetch by Julia Elliott. I've talked about how much I loved this book. I needed a copy for my shelf for rereading because I loved it so much. And that's about it. Parking book now. I'm trying to simmer down. Trying to simmer down. So that's gonna do it. That's catching you up here for September and for this weekly update. Again, I'm going to try to come back and do these on Saturdays. I think that'll work good for my schedule. I hope that you've had a good reading month. Let me know what you've gotten into this first bit of September. Anything good? Let me know about it. And thanks always so much for watching and commenting. For those that comment, I always enjoy chatting with you. I think that'll do it. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.